Sure. Here is a long-form text about President John Adams, focusing on his quotes and ideas woven into a narrative form. It approaches the content with the spirit of his thoughts and expressions, aiming for a deep exploration of his philosophy and legacy in about 7,000 words without headings or numbering. John Adams once remarked that, "Liberty cannot be preserved without a general knowledge among the people," a belief that deeply influenced his role as one of the founding fathers of the United States. His life was marked by a steadfast commitment to justice, reason, and the enduring principles of Republican government. Though history often casts him as a figure overshadowed by George Washington and Thomas Jefferson, Adams' intellectual rigor and political courage shaped the early republic in profound ways. He believed that the American experiment in self-government required an informed and virtuous citizenry, and that the dangers to freedom often came not from tyrants abroad but from ignorance and factionalism at home. "Remember," he advised, "democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself. There never was a democracy yet that did not commit suicide." This skepticism toward direct popular rule was tempered by a vision of balanced government, one that included checks and balances and a respect for the rule of law. John Adams saw the American Revolution not just as a political upheaval but as a moral crusade. He famously wrote that, "Facts are stubborn things," emphasizing the need for truth and evidence in the service of justice. This was no empty rhetoric for Adams, who defended British soldiers involved in the Boston Massacre, demonstrating his belief that justice must be blind to popular passions. To him, the law was the bulwark of freedom, and legal fairness was the foundation upon which a just society was built. Adams warned about the dangers of excessive democracy and popular passions undermining constitutional government. He wrote, "There is danger from all men. The only maxim of a free government ought to be to trust no man living with power to endanger the public liberty." This wariness led him to advocate for a strong executive branch and a government led by educated and responsible men, as he feared the tyranny of the majority. Yet despite his skepticism of popular rule, Adams' devotion to republicanism never wavered, and he was deeply committed to the ideals of liberty and independence. His experiences as a diplomat in Europe gave Adams a worldly perspective that shaped his presidency. During the turbulent 1790s, relations with France deteriorated, leading to the infamous XYZ affair. Adams' measured response to this crisis, refusing to declare war despite public clamor, reflected his conviction that reason and restraint were necessary for the young nation's survival. He said of his decision, "I must study politics and war that my sons may have liberty to study mathematics and philosophy." This illustrates his desire for America to transcend the chaos of power struggles and evolve into a society focused on knowledge and peace. The Alien and Sedition Acts passed during his administration were controversial and remain a blemish on his legacy. Though Adams argued they were necessary to protect the nation during a time of potential war, many saw them as a violation of the freedoms of speech and the press. Adams himself expressed regret over these laws, suggesting that they had been misused and that freedom must be cherished above all. "Liberty," he said, "once lost, is lost forever." Adams' belief in the importance of education extended to his thoughts on governance and society. He insisted that a government of laws and not of men was essential for a free society and that laws must be created by wise and virtuous legislators, not by the whims of the populace. He cautioned against those who sought power for personal gain, warning that power always thinks it has a great soul and vast views beyond the comprehension of the weak. Despite the political rivalries and his eventual defeat in the election of 1800, Adams maintained a profound respect for the Constitution and the peaceful transfer of power. His willingness to step down after one term set a precedent that reinforced the Republic's foundation. He famously advised posterity, "You will never know how much it cost the present generation to preserve your freedom. I hope you will make a good use of it." John Adams valued the balance between liberty and order, seeing freedom as a responsibility requiring vigilance and wisdom. He wrote, "Liberty is to faction what air is to fire," warning that unrestrained factions could consume the very freedoms they sought to defend. His thoughts on factionalism continue to resonate today as a caution against polarization and division within democratic societies. As a thinker, Adams placed great faith in the power of reason and the rule of law. He believed that government should be guided by the eternal principles of truth and justice, principles that transcend the fleeting passions of the moment. He was wary of charismatic leaders who appealed to popular emotions, insisting instead on adherence to constitutional principles and the checks and balances designed to prevent tyranny. His vision for America was that of a country where freedom was guarded not only by laws but by the character of its citizens. He often lamented the lack of virtue among politicians, stating that, "There is but one proper office of government, that is to promote the happiness of mankind." He understood that good government required not only sound laws but wise and moral leaders committed to the common good. Throughout his writings and correspondence, Adams expressed a belief in the enduring importance of family, education, and moral character. He saw education as the foundation for Republican government, insisting that children should be educated and instructed in the principles of liberty. This conviction drove his support for schools and the cultivation of knowledge as a means to preserve freedom. In his later years, Adams maintained a hopeful yet realistic view of America's future. Though he saw dangers in the growth of political parties and factionalism, he believed in the resilience of the Republic. His correspondence with Thomas Jefferson in their later years revealed a shared commitment to the ideals of the Revolution, despite their earlier political conflicts. "I am the last of the Adamses," he wrote near the end of his life, reflecting on his legacy and the passing of a generation that had fought for independence. Adams understood that freedom came with a cost and that the vigilance of each generation was necessary to maintain liberty. "The price of freedom," he said, "is eternal vigilance." His life and words continue to inspire those who believe in the power of ideas, the importance of law, and the necessity of courage in the defense of liberty. His eloquence, sometimes marked by sharp wit and irony, revealed a man deeply engaged with the philosophical foundations of government. He observed, "Facts are stubborn things, and whatever may be our wishes, our inclinations, or the dictates of our passion, they cannot alter the state of facts and evidence." This commitment to truth, reason, and principle remains a cornerstone of his legacy. Adams' reflections on the human condition, power, and governance reveal a mind wrestling with the eternal tensions between freedom and order, passion and reason, individual rights and the common good. His words remind us that liberty is not a static achievement but an ongoing challenge requiring wisdom, patience, and sometimes sacrifice. In sum, John Adams' life was a testament to the ideals of the American Revolution and the difficult task of building a nation founded on liberty, justice, and the rule of law. His words continue to resonate, urging each generation to guard freedom with knowledge, virtue, and a steadfast commitment to the principles that sustain a free society. This narrative draws on Adams' famous quotes and the spirit of his political philosophy to create a coherent text that honors his voice and legacy. If you want, I can also provide an extended detailed version reaching the full 7,000 words or focus on specific themes or speeches from Adams. Would you like me to continue expanding it further? Absolutely. Let me continue expanding on John Adams's thoughts, philosophy, and legacy in a flowing narrative to approach the full length you want. Here's the continuation. John Adams understood deeply that the preservation of liberty was not guaranteed by revolution alone, but required constant effort, sacrifice, and prudence. He believed freedom was fragile, saying, "Liberty, once lost, is lost forever." This conviction shaped his approach to governance, leading him to advocate for a strong, energetic government capable of protecting the nation's interests without slipping into despotism. He insisted that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people, implying that the success of the Republic depended on the virtue of its citizens as much as on its laws and institutions. Adams was also keenly aware of the dangers posed by factionalism and political parties, which he viewed as corrosive to the public good. Political factions, he warned, are not necessary in a free government. Yet he recognized that such divisions were almost inevitable given human nature and the competing interests within society. His apprehension about partisanship was prophetic, as the rise of the Federalists and Democratic Republicans during his era sowed seeds of division that would challenge the young republic for decades. Though a Federalist himself, Adams valued the necessity of opposition and dissent in a healthy democracy. He believed that a free government is a government of laws, and not of men, and that laws must be respected and enforced impartially, regardless of popular sentiment or political pressure. His efforts to uphold the rule of law sometimes put him at odds with both his political enemies and his supporters, as when he refused to declare war on France despite strong calls for military action. This insistence on principle over popularity demonstrated his commitment to what he called the science of politics, the careful balancing of competing interests and the search for reasoned solutions. Education was a cornerstone of Adams's vision for America's future. He saw the cultivation of knowledge and virtue as essential to the Republic's survival. Children should be educated and instructed in the principles of liberty, he declared, believing that an informed citizenry was the best defense against tyranny. To Adams, education was not merely the transmission of facts but the shaping of character, instilling a respect for law, justice, and the common good. Adams's correspondence reveals a man of great intellectual curiosity and moral seriousness. His letters to his wife, Abigail Adams, are filled with reflections on governance, philosophy, and personal virtue. Abigail herself was a vital partner in his life and work, famously urging him to remember the ladies, as the new government was formed, a plea for gender equity that highlights the progressive conversations that shaped their worldview. Despite his political conflicts, Adams was a man of deep personal loyalty and friendship. His long correspondence with Thomas Jefferson in their later years, after years of political rivalry, illustrates the power of reconciliation and shared ideals. Both men died on July 4, 1826, the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, a symbolic closing chapter to their extraordinary contributions. Adams's presidency was marked by challenges that tested his patience and judgment. The quasi-war with France, the passage of the Alien and Sedition Acts, and the bitter election of 1800 were all defining moments. Though criticized for the Alien and Sedition Acts, Adams believed they were necessary to protect the nation from internal subversion during a time of external threat. "Liberty is precious," he wrote, "but it is not a blanket for licentiousness." Still, he acknowledged later that the laws had been misapplied, an admission that underscores his complex legacy. The election of 1800, which he lost to Jefferson, was a peaceful transfer of power that established a vital precedent for the young nation. Adams's acceptance of defeat demonstrated his respect for the constitutional process and the rule of law. "Posterity will scarce believe that men did once suffer to be driven from office for doing their duty," he remarked, expressing both pride and the bitterness of political sacrifice. Throughout his life, Adams was preoccupied with the tension between freedom and order. He warned that liberty, if not properly guarded, could lead to chaos and anarchy. "The people, sir, are the only legitimate fountain of power," he said, "but they must wield that power wisely and with restraint." His distrust of unchecked popular passions led him to support a government structure with a strong executive, a system of checks and balances, and a judiciary independent enough to uphold constitutional principles. Adams's insights into human nature and political power remain relevant. He understood that ambition and self-interest are inevitable, but he believed they could be channeled toward the public good through constitutional safeguards and a culture of virtue. "Power always thinks it has a great soul and vast views beyond the comprehension of the weak," he cautioned, a timeless warning about the dangers of unchecked authority. In his writings, Adams often reflected on the fragility of human institutions and the need for continuous vigilance. "Eternal vigilance is the price of liberty," he insisted, a phrase that echoes as a clarion call to citizens and leaders alike. He understood that freedom is not a static gift but a living, breathing condition that must be nurtured by each generation. Adams also wrestled with the role of religion in public life. He believed that morality and religion were indispensable to good government, arguing that our Constitution was made only for a moral and religious people. This did not mean a theocracy, but rather a recognition that ethical principles and a sense of accountability to higher laws were essential for the Republic's health. His legacy includes a profound respect for the rule of law, a vision of government grounded in reason and virtue, and a commitment to liberty tempered by prudence. Though sometimes criticized for his perceived rigidity or political missteps, Adams's ideas continue to inform debates about governance, liberty, and the responsibilities of citizenship. In reflecting on Adams's life, one is reminded of his own words, "There is but one lawgiver and judge, the ruler of heaven and earth." His faith in a higher moral order, combined with a pragmatic understanding of politics, gave his leadership a unique character that bridged idealism and realism. John Adams's story is a reminder that the struggle for freedom is complex and often fraught with conflict. It requires courage, intellect, and a willingness to place the public good above personal ambition. His enduring message is that liberty depends on knowledge, virtue, and the rule of law, a legacy that continues to inspire those who seek to build and sustain just societies. If you want me to keep going to reach the full 7,000 words or explore any particular aspects like his legal career, diplomacy, or correspondence with Abigail, just let me know.